In the heart of America's media storm, one name echoes louder than most: Musk. For years, it was a name associated with genius, vision, and the dream of pushing humanity beyond the stars. Elon Musk, the man behind Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, a symbol of technological progress. But now, a darker shadow stretches across that name, not from Elon himself, but from his father, Errol Musk. According to multiple international reports, Errol Musk, now 79 years old, has been accused of a history of sexual abuse that spans decades. The allegations are not whispered rumors in obscure tabloids. They come from family members, court documents, and testimonies that paint a chilling picture of a man who allegedly turned his own household into a place of fear. The scandal ignited when resurfaced testimonies revealed that, back in 1993, Errol's stepdaughter, just 4 years old at the time, confided in relatives about disturbing incidents. She described unwanted touching, moments where Errol allegedly sniffed her dirty underwear, and behaviors that no child should ever experience. Over time, more stories emerged. Several of Errol's children and even a stepson spoke about abusive behavior that left scars far deeper than the public had ever realized. Fast forward to 2023, and the allegations became even more haunting. A 5-year-old son reportedly told family members that his father had touched him inappropriately. It was not the first accusation, but it was a reminder that for decades the shadow of abuse had not disappeared. Officially, there were 3 separate cases of sexual violence investigated against Errol Musk, yet none of them ended in conviction, a fact that raises even more questions than it answers. Was justice denied? Were the victims silenced? Or was this yet another case of power shielding itself from accountability? And here lies the paradox. Elon Musk, the son who became the richest man in the world, has long spoken of his father with contempt. As early as 2017, Elon publicly called Errol a man who committed almost every evil you can imagine. In 2023, he clarified that he no longer had any contact with his father at all, effectively severing ties. Insiders even report that Elon went as far as to leave his children in California, deliberately keeping them away from Errol while considering legal guardianship to protect them. The scandal is not only personal, it is political, cultural, and deeply symbolic. America loves to build icons, but it also loves to tear them down. And what could be more sensational than exposing the dark secrets buried in the family tree of the world's most famous billionaire? For Elon Musk, this is not just a private nightmare. It is a public trial by media, where the sins of the father are broadcast in headlines across The Guardian, The New York Times, and countless others. And as this storm grows, one question rises above all. Can Elon Musk's legacy survive the darkness of Errol Musk's past? The accusations against Errol Musk are not just fleeting claims or sensationalist gossip. They are part of a long, unsettling record that stretches across decades, involving multiple children, stepchildren, and broken households. What makes this story so haunting is not only the content of the allegations, but the persistence of a pattern, a cycle of trauma that many say remained hidden under layers of silence, wealth, and influence. It began in 1993 in the family's South African home. Errol's stepdaughter, a child of only 4 years old, whispered to relatives about inappropriate touches. At that age, her words were heartbreaking in their simplicity, describing how he would hold her, how he would sniff her underwear, how she felt afraid. For the adults who heard her confession, the accusations were shocking, but, as often happens in cases involving powerful men, the machinery of accountability failed to move. The incident, devastating as it was, never brought a conviction. As the years passed, the testimonies multiplied. Other children and even a stepson came forward, speaking of cruel behavior and abuse that cut deep into their formative years. According to their accounts, Errol wielded control like a weapon, creating an environment of fear inside his home. For some, the wounds were physical. For others, they were psychological, a constant reminder that the person meant to protect them instead betrayed that sacred trust. Then came the revelation that stunned even those already familiar with Errol's dark reputation. His stepdaughter bore his child. It was the kind of detail that transformed the whispers of scandal into a scream. Suddenly, the story of abuse had crossed into the grotesque, a man blurring the lines of fatherhood and exploitation in a way that defied cultural and moral boundaries. International headlines seized on the revelation, painting Errol not as an eccentric old man, but as a predator hiding in plain sight. In 2023, the cycle seemed to continue. Reports emerged that a 5-year-old son had confided that Errol touched him inappropriately. Once again, the details were chillingly consistent with past accusations, and once again, authorities investigated, but no verdict was delivered. By this point, at least 3 separate legal cases had been opened into allegations of sexual abuse tied to Errol Musk. Each time, the accusations collided with the impenetrable wall of the justice system. Without a conviction, the official record remained technically clean, but the testimonies painted an unmistakably damning portrait. For Elon Musk, the rising tide of accusations was not just a family scandal, it was a nightmare. The billionaire had long described his father in almost demonic terms, once stating that Errol was capable of almost every evil imaginable, but even those words seemed too small in light of the new allegations. Insiders claimed that Elon desperately tried to shield his children from Errol, leaving them in California and considering legal guardianship as a shield of protection. Yet the question persists: why, after so many accusations, did Errol Musk walk free? Was it lack of evidence, systemic failure, or the long shadow of privilege? And perhaps more importantly, if the world's most famous innovator and billionaire couldn't protect his own family from these horrors, what chance do ordinary people have? As the details pile up, the scandal grows not only darker, but heavier, threatening to crush the carefully curated image of the Musk dynasty. What was once whispered in family circles is now shouted in global headlines. And for Elon, the ghosts of his father's past are no longer confined to memory. They have become front-page news. For Elon Musk, the battle with his father was never just private. It was a lifelong war for survival, both emotional and reputational. Long before the headlines splashed accusations of abuse across the pages of the New York Times, The Guardian, and countless digital outlets, Elon himself had already issued a warning to the world. His father was a dangerous man. Back in 2017, at the height of Tesla's meteoric rise, Elon granted interviews where he spoke of Errol Musk with almost biblical condemnation. He described his father as someone who had committed almost every evil you can imagine. It wasn't casual bitterness, it was a deliberate distancing, a public signal that he would not be tied to the sins of the man who raised him. But at the time, those words felt abstract, the kind of hyperbole that often comes from fractured families. Years later, the accusations made them chillingly real. By 2023, Elon Musk had severed all ties with Errol, cutting communication completely. He admitted openly that he no longer spoke to his father and did not wish to have any contact whatsoever. Sources close to the family revealed that Elon even considered seeking legal guardianship over some of his siblings to protect them from their father's influence. He intentionally kept his own children away, leaving them in California when traveling abroad, a move that insiders say was motivated not by convenience but by fear of exposure to Errol. The scandal placed Elon in a peculiar position. On one hand, he was the victim, a son who had endured years of trauma under a domineering parent, now forced to watch as fresh accusations resurfaced to prove his warnings true. On the other, he was the world's richest man, a public figure whose every word was dissected for meaning. His father's disgrace became ammunition in the cultural war of American media. Detractors of Elon wielded the scandal to question his judgment, his upbringing, even his character. Supporters countered that Elon's estrangement was proof of his strength, that he had broken free from a toxic lineage. For Elon, the nightmare was compounded by the relentlessness of the spotlight. The headlines didn't just report the allegations, they framed them in a way that entwined his name with his father's. Elon Musk's father, accused of sexual abuse, screamed across news feeds. The surname alone was enough to collapse the boundary between Elon's world of rockets and cars and Errol's world of disgrace. To the public, nuance didn't matter. The Musk family name was stained, and Elon was powerless to stop it. Still, Elon refused to back away from confrontation. In private, he reminded allies that he had long tried to shield his family. He positioned himself as the protector, the one who saw the danger early and took steps to break the cycle. Yet the tragedy of the story was unavoidable. The richest man alive, the genius behind rockets and electric cars, could not escape the shadow of his father's alleged crimes. His empire was vast, his influence unmatched, but his personal history was a battlefield he could never fully win. The media, of course, thrived on the tension. Talk shows dissected his quotes, late-night comedians turned the scandal into punchlines, and political commentators speculated on how this revelation might affect Musk's Musk's ventures, from Twitter to Tesla to SpaceX. Once again, Elon Musk was at the center of the storm, not for his innovations, but for the sins of a man he had tried so desperately to leave behind. And in this chaos lies the central paradox. Elon Musk had long warned the world about his father. Now the world was listening, but only after the damage had already been done. The scandal surrounding Errol Musk did not fade quietly into the background. Instead, it exploded across the global stage, colliding with one of the most recognizable surnames in the world. For the media, it was irresistible. The father of the richest man alive, accused of sexual abuse against his own children and stepchildren. Headlines that combined wealth, genius, and disgrace were guaranteed to dominate the cycle. And dominate they did. Across American television, the story became more than just another tabloid scandal. News anchors dissected every accusation, commentators speculated about the failures of the justice system, and talk shows weaponized the Musk family tragedy as fuel for ratings. The Guardian, the New York Times, People, News. Each headline echoed the same refrain: the father of Elon Musk accused of monstrous crimes. For readers and viewers, the line between Elon and Errol blurred. For Elon, the nightmare was that no matter how far he distanced himself, his father's shadow kept dragging him back. The consequences rippled outward. For Tesla and SpaceX investors, the scandal was a reminder of the fragility of reputation. Musk's companies were not directly tied to his father, but in a media landscape driven by perception, association was everything. For critics of Elon Musk, it was an opportunity to question his judgment, his family history, even his moral compass. For supporters, it was evidence of resilience, proof that Elon had risen above a poisoned upbringing, carving out success in spite of his father, rather than because of him. Yet beneath the media frenzy lies the darker truth. 3 separate cases of alleged abuse against Errol Musk, none ending in conviction. Victims' testimonies describing years of trauma, yet justice consistently slipping through their fingers. For many observers, this was not just a Musk family scandal, it was a window into a larger problem. How many powerful men shielded by wealth and influence have escaped accountability? How many victims have been left unheard because the abuser's last name carried weight? Elon Musk himself remains an enigma in this storm. On social media, he continues to post about rockets, AI, and space colonization, rarely addressing the scandal directly. To some, this is evidence of denial. To others, it is survival. How does one reconcile building the future of humanity while haunted by the darkness of the past? And so, the story of Errol Musk is no longer just about one man's alleged crimes. It has become a test of perception, legacy, and power. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about family, accountability, and the weight of inherited shame. For Elon Musk, the future remains unwritten. His companies still soar, his innovations still shape the world, but his family name now carries a fracture that no amount of wealth can erase. The final question is one that lingers far beyond the headlines. Will Elon Musk's vision of the future survive the sins of his father, or will history forever remember the Musk dynasty as a story of brilliance tainted by disgrace?